Okay, it's Crystal with everydayfoodstorage.net, and I'm joined again with Belinda, our pro square foot gardening expert, the woman who teaches everyone in Utah and around the world how to be square foot garden certified. And this week she's teaching you also how to be a pro at square foot gardening. Now, yesterday we talked about boxes, how to plan out your garden, how to make your own boxes, where you can buy them if you are like me and have a husband who said no to making them. And today we're talking about the soil, because the soil is the second big component to square foot gardening. So, why do we have 3 piles here?
Well, not only is it a big component, but it's probably the most important thing to your garden is your soil. You need to have it. You need to have it just right for your vegetables to really thrive. Mel's Mix is what we call our soil.
After the guy who developed square foot gardening, Mel Bartholomew.
Mel Bartholomew. And what we have here is we have 3 equal parts: peat moss, vermiculite, and compost. Now this compost is actually my very own compost that I've made.
And we'll be showing a video too, because that's an important part of square foot gardening also, is how to compost, plus you're recycling and reusing your waste. So.
And once you know how to compost and you can replenish your garden with your own compost, your garden is completely self-sufficient.
Yes. Which is what we love, self-sufficiency.
Not only that, but completely organic. You're not putting any artificial fertilizers, you're not putting any chemicals, so you know your vegetables are pure and as healthy as possible. So, you may not have your own compost going, especially if you're just tuning in and totally clueless about gardening. So you can go to a nursery or a garden center and you can buy compost, but you need to buy 4 to 5 different types of compost. And by that I mean different bags.
That was my big mistake. I bought all turkey manure because guess what? It's cheap.
And
it burned my vegetables.
Unfortunately, I made the same mistake my first time too, because it was cheap. But yeah, you don't want straight manure. That's just
so. What are some types of compost? Because I've heard there's like mushroom compost. So tell me some names that they can be looking for.
Right. This is what you can be looking for. You do want the poultry or the turkey manure. You can get dairy manure, but you've got to also have your mushroom compost, or a wood blend, like a soil pep kind of thing. You can also get worm castings. You can go to your local composting municipal place. What's it called?
Like sometimes cities have places where you can drop your greenery and then buy back the compost.
Exactly. Now be careful with that, because you might think, oh, well, that's a blended compost, it's super cheap, but most of the time it's wood-based completely, and so you're just not going to get the nutrients in that. And also, like here, we have our sewer treatment. They do a biocompost with some of the sewer, but it has a lot of weeds in it. It actually works really well, but we find that we get a lot of weeds in that. So you can buy these, but not really at Home Depot though, because I remember the first year, part of the problem why I only got turkey manure is because Home Depot and like Lowe's, they don't really have like the mushroom, the worm castings. You really need to find like a local nursery for those types, right? Probably, yeah. You could try there, but a local nursery will most likely have that. And they might have even a blended compost in one bag, which is good, but don't just buy 5 of that same bag. Still mix it. Because you need to get different sources, because a lot of times it's in one bag and it says blended compost, it's still from one source, like one dairy farm, or something like that. So, but the compost is really probably the most important of these 3, because this is what has the nutrients to feed your plants. So here's your plant food right here, the compost. Okay. Exactly. Now our peat moss, everybody's probably familiar with peat moss. When you buy this in, say, a 2 cubic foot bag, it's going to be compressed. So you need to open that and fluff it up, and then make sure it's 1/3 of what you're mixing together. These are all 1/3. That was my mistake number 2, is that I just took, it's compacted, right? It looks like that little rectangle, and I just started throwing it in. So make sure you let it sit out, fluff up, and then take a portion to match your other portion. Or you've got way too much peat moss. Yeah. And peat moss is wonderful. We're actually conserving this product because apparently it's a non-renewable product, but you only add this one time to your box.
So then why do you need the peat moss?
Okay, the peat moss is really wonderful for retaining water.
Okay, water conservation.
Yes, and also it keeps our soil loose, and that's what the vegetables really like. So because we're gardening in a container, in a box, we need to have components that will retain water. Now that brings me to the vermiculite. This is really an interesting product. This is actually a rock that's mined out of the ground, and then it's exploded into these pieces, and they get nooks and crannies in these little pieces that will hold water. And when you feel this, it's almost spongy.
Yeah, it is spongy because you can almost squish it in between your fingers.
But this is a coarse vermiculite, and so we like to have the larger vermiculite because it will break down more slowly over time, and the larger pieces will hold more water.
So basically, this is the plant food, and this is the way that we're keeping water in there all the time.
And keeping our soil nice and friable and loose.
And that will also make it easy to weed, right? Because they just come right out.
Yes. But you only add this one time to your box and your vermiculite. These will actually last for years and years. They don't break down.
Oh, wow.
They don't disappear. This will. So this is the only thing we need to replenish.
And so that's why when you said in the beginning, when you're taking out a plant, you know, because we're rotating our crops with the square foot gardening, that we're putting one scoop back into the compost, and that's it.
Right.
Because that's the only one that will break down and get used up by the vegetables.
Yeah, that's what we do add again when we're ready to plant something new.
Okay, so then what do we do with these three things? What's the trick?
Okay, we've got them on a tarp here, and we've got our tarp right near our box. And it helps if you've got a couple of people, one on each opposite corner. What I'm going to do, Crystal, is I'm going to mix this over to your end.
Okay.
And then you'll pull it back this way. We're doing this on a smaller scale, but when you get enough in here that will fill a 4x4, it's going to take a couple of people to really dig. So just walk back.
So this is the secret too of how to do it without a wheelbarrow.
Yep, and you know, no shovels needed. Sometimes if it's a little windy, you may want to put a little bit of a shower mist on there. Not too much, because we don't want to get this too heavy.
Yeah, because you have to carry it over to your box.
Just to keep it from blowing away. Okay, I think we're ready. It looks pretty well mixed. All we do is drag it over. Now, this is an important thing.
She's giving you all the secrets here.
As we fill our box with our Mel's Mix, we're going to spray it.
Okay.
Because I want to plant right away. So, if I'm spraying it as we fill it, we're going to get it nice and moist. All that peat moss and all that vermiculite, it's going to take quite a bit of water to really soak that up.
More water than I think people realize.
I do too.
You can have big puddles and come back in an hour and it looks dry again.
Exactly. So we really, if we're going to plant seeds especially, we really have to get this nice and wet. Okay, if you'll lift that in and I'll spray it as you...
Okay, so all I'm doing is just lifting the tarp up. Belinda's spraying it, and it's going to go right into this little box.
And look at that. As I move it, there's still dryness in it.
Yeah, it's totally dry.
There's still dryness. So we've just really got to soak it down.
Because you want to make sure and soak it that very first time, because that's going to help you keep up on your watering, right?
Yes,
Vegetables love the water. Now, with square foot gardening, do you have to worry about overwatering since we're really soaking this down?
You know, that's another beauty about Mel's Mix, and that is we eliminate the main mistake that beginning gardeners make, which is overwatering. You can kill your plants by overwatering. With Mel's Mix, you can't overwater because the mix is like a sponge, and it'll soak up all the water it needs, and then what it doesn't need, it'll drain right out under your box.
So, and that's so great too, because one of the big things is getting your kids out helping. And when I showed up, Belinda said, "Oh, my granddaughter's been out watering, can't you tell? And she just loves to water, 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 water." But you can get your kids excited because you don't have to try and keep them out necessarily all the time.
Exactly. You don't have to scold them. Don't water so much. There's no problem. They can water to their heart's content. Give them each their own watering can. Let them go at it. That's the one thing kids love to do.
Now for the soil, there is an easier option if you live in Utah, right? Because Belinda will deliver it to you with her box.
Yeah, we saw another need to make Mel's Mix for people so that they didn't have to have any guesswork about it and maybe not have some, you know, problems in the beginning like I did and you did when we tried to mix our own. So we actually do make the Mel's Mix here locally at a local landscaping plant. And they bag it for us. We also have it in a large cubic yard as well.
So there is an option if you don't feel like you want to, because I can see if you had a lot of garden boxes like I'm going to have, that would be hard to work back and forth that many. But if you don't live in Utah, then you can mix it yourself. And we showed you all the secrets on how to be successful at mixing your own soil.
Right, we have.
So remember to keep checking back, because Belinda with HomeGardensToGo.com, the square foot gardening expert, will actually be here longer than just this week of square foot gardening classes, but she will be here every week telling us more about gardening and taking us through the entire process all summer long, because you want us to be successful, right?
I do, and I really appreciate you involving me because I'm really excited to help everybody.
So make sure you check out her website, HomeGardensToGo.com. Remember, she has the boxes, the dirt, the weed cloth. She delivers to more than just Utah, but if you do live in Utah, she will actually come and set it up for you and bring the dirt. So for more tips and tricks for using food storage every day, visit www.everydayfoodstorage.net and home